The Dragon Age drama is ridiculous. After a 10-year absence, the classic Dragon Age franchise returns with an all-new installment titled The Veilguard. This action role-playing game developed by BioWare has been generating significant attention online. However, not all of the discussions surrounding the game have been entirely positive. Perhaps drawing the most attention are the game's character customization options, which even include an on-off slide allowing players to make the surprisingly specific choice of whether or not their character has top surgery scars. Yeah, you heard me right. Top surgery scars. The marks left on the chest after a surgical procedure commonly performed for either medical reasons or as part of gender-affirming surgery for transgender and non-binary individuals. The inclusion of this feature has sparked division online, further highlighting how contentious corporate behaviour around identity politics has become and how it is often received. While I'll delve more into this particular addition to the game, it's actually other elements of this title's customization that, to me at least, are far more egregious and perplexing. So without further ado, I am Lady Decade. Hit that subscribe button. This is why the Dragon Age controversy is pathetic. While modern gaming has its fair share of problems, no matter how creatively bankrupt and sterile many experiences feel, even today we are regularly receiving diamonds in the rough. The only drawback with this is that great quality often comes at a cost, but have no fear, Lady Decade is here and I can get you 22% off of the excellent Black Myth Wukong, as well as up to 20% off of the standard gold and ultra editions of the brilliant Space Marine 2. If these two must-play games don't tickle your fancy though, not to fear, I can get you up to 90% off of thousands of other AAA, indie, modern and retro titles too, so grab a shopping list of bargains now. To do so, use my affiliate link via the pinned comment. Instant Gaming have just sponsored this channel for a 7th month in a row due to your constant usage of the service, so for that, I cannot thank you all enough. Over the past few decades, American politics and its global influence have become highly polarized. The rise of 24-hour news cycles, social media and echo chambers has amplified cultural conflicts, with media outlets, influencers and commentators often highlighting extreme viewpoints to drive engagement, thereby making issues more contentious. With this in mind, it's clear that regardless of where you stand on certain debates, the inclusion of a top surgery customization option in a mainstream video game has become a hot topic. For those who have chosen to undergo such procedures, I feel like most would agree that top surgery is a deeply personal decision and can be a significant step forward in aligning one's physical appearance with the gender they feel they are. After all, many transgender individuals wish they had been born as the opposite biological sex, so transitioning helps them to feel more connected to their true selves. So the existence of individuals who have undergone such surgeries is acknowledged, but opinions on the broader implications can vary. Some may view it as a personal choice aligned with individual freedom, believing that adults should have the autonomy to make decisions about their own bodies. However, others express concerns about societal norms, medical ethics, and whether these procedures should be encouraged or normalized, especially for younger individuals who may be easily influenced and are often known to make hasty, poorly thought out decisions. So, top surgery remains a polarizing topic. But regardless of what you think, we all know that top surgery exists. So if this game aims to offer extensive customization, does it make sense for this feature to be included? Before we dive deeper and to understand the context further, let's super quickly recap what Dragon Age is all about. Dragon Age is a fantasy role-playing video game series, and while it doesn't reflect any specific era of human history, its setting, Thedas, draws from various historical periods. Much of its atmosphere is most reminiscent of the European Middle Ages, which spanned from the 5th to the late 15th century. It's not exactly a time or place known for gender-affirming surgeries. Then again though, since Dragon Age is a work of fiction, it of course doesn't need to be historically accurate. After all, it features bloody dragons as formidable creatures, elves inspired by folklore, and magic as a central element. This does, though, bring us to an interesting point, and I'm playing the devil's advocate here. In a fantasy world where people have the power to wield magic, wouldn't it make more sense for individuals to change their gender through magical means rather than having to go under the knife?
Oh man, you're just ruining it.
Moreover, considering that the Dragon Age series has always allowed players to choose their character's gender, it raises the question, why was this specific feature deemed necessary? Regardless of whether you're transgender or not, everyone has the option to play as either a man or woman in these games. This has led many to believe that the decision to include a top surgery scar on off switch is nothing more than an act of corporate moral grandstanding. Another reason many people find this inclusion thoroughly bizarre is that scars of this nature aren't typically a feature most would want to highlight. It's akin to me creating a self-insert character in a game and opting to include my unwanted pregnancy stretch marks. It's understandable why many might find this a perplexing addition to a literal fantasy setting. It's just not the same as adding battle scars achieved through combat, which are obviously much more fitting in a game like this. One of the primary draws of fantasy games is the opportunity to escape from the real world. By creating characters that differ from their actual appearance, players can immerse themselves more deeply in these fictional worlds. A perfect example of this is my experience with Skyrim, where I've invested hundreds of hours into just this one game over the years, and usually I create female Nord characters because I find them most thematically fitting. I like my character to be a beautiful blonde ex-criminal who was caught trying to flee Skyrim before being sent for execution. I then prioritise the two-handed and archery skills, followed by sneak, lockpicking and light armour. Obviously, this character build is nothing like real life for me, and I can get into a proper flow state when I play that game. It's an escape. I would hate to have my immersion broken by something jarringly out of place, like an NPC complaining about modern day taxes, for example, or pulling out a smartphone or something. It would destroy the atmosphere of the game for me, and I'm sure I'm not the only person who feels like that. If not creating a character tailored to fit a specific world, many players use character creation as a way to craft an idealized version of themselves, or individuals far more impressive than they could ever be. Let's be honest, how many of you men watching at home have made playable characters who are 7 feet tall with 300 pounds of muscle just to go on a power trip? That's the power of fantasy. Not only that, but creating a character that looks different also allows players to maintain a level of privacy and anonymity online. This can make them feel safer when interacting with others, as their real-life identity remains hidden. The real beauty is that fantasy games often provide extensive customization options beyond real-world norms, allowing players to explore creative design choices like fantastical races, unique clothing, and unconventional hairstyles or body types. Qualities that, to be fair, Dragon Age seems to offer in abundance. For these reasons, the inclusion of top surgery scars seems perplexing to many, as fantasy games are meant to let you become a completely different person or an idealized version of yourself, so why include marks that are literally remnants of old wounds? Well, let's be honest. Some people create game characters that resemble themselves as closely as possible. For them, this fosters a personal connection, making in-game events feel more impactful and emotionally resonant. It allows players to express and explore their identities in a virtual space within a controlled environment. Personally, I've never felt the need to recreate myself in a game. I'm not self-absorbed enough to want a like-for-like representation, but if others want to do that, more power to them. As for the discussion around this topic, while there are people who are upset about the inclusion of top surgery scars in the game, from my perspective, I don't see any real harm in it. Although I believe the percentage of players who will actually use this feature is incredibly small, It's there for those who want it. After all, why not have the customization options to create characters however we please? We should be able to create whoever we want, and Dragon Age gives us that freedom, right? Well, no, actually not at all. So here's the big problem. One of our favourite punching bags on this channel, IGN, published an article about this game, showering it with praise for its character creation features. They wrote, "Customization certainly doesn't stop at hair or horns, of course. Every aspect of your rook is editable, even allowing for facial asymmetry if you choose. Sliders allow you to change everything from head shape to the melanin in your skin to the presence of vitiligo. My favourite addition, however, is the introduction of body diversity. The options feel almost endless. There's even a glute slider, and yes, I gave my rook one hell of an arse." Except, when you look at their video, this is clearly a massive lie. Turning the glutes slider up to 100%, it's clear from this footage that the character's arse remains incredibly small and as flat as a pancake, suggesting that the developers aren't quite as pro-body diversity as IGN and other corporate websites' game previews might suggest. The fact that this is the largest option available with that body distribution is baffling to me. Women typically have higher body fat percentages than men, often accumulating more around the hips, buttocks and thighs. Moreover, women who engage in regular strength training, particularly exercises like squats, often develop larger and more toned buttocks. Despite these biological norms and the fact that many people find such figures highly attractive, the game seems to lack this representation, which has annoyed many players. Perhaps even more insane is that the breast slider in the game only allows for smaller chest sizes, with a meme circulating suggesting that you can't create a character with a bust larger than a B cup. This means that unlike someone who has undergone top surgery, if you're a woman with a more ample chest or a curvier behind, the game doesn't offer customization options to represent yourself accurately. I mean, I can't use a measuring tape and measure the character for myself to get an accurate measurement, but I can certainly eyeball it, and I do agree with the B cup assessment. This has naturally caused outrage, as it not only alienates certain players but also denies others, particularly those who appreciate these traits, which includes women like me, the chance to create their ideal character. It's a missed opportunity to allow players to explore a very basic fantasy in this fantasy setting. But once again, a top surgery scar option was included. As for myself, I like to think that I have a pretty average body for a 35-year-old woman. I wear a D-cup bra and have a behind which is far from extraordinary, but even I can't create myself in this game, let alone many younger women than myself who are massively into health and fitness, who train their well-curated arses every day. On the subject of the shape of my body, I felt my B-roll footage of some of my cosplays would fit perfectly in here. The primary function of these costumes is to increase click-through rates on particular videos, which have been financed via the lovely people who back my independent voice over on Patreon, who, as a thank you, gain access to my behind-the-scenes cosplay photo library, which I consistently update. So, huge thanks again to everyone who shows support for me over there so I can continue to play dress up. Speaking of aesthetics, that brings me back to the game's limitations. It's surprising really how many women, myself included, can't create a true likeness of themselves despite game journalists heaping praise on its creative options, even though said options don't even allow most women to recreate their natural body shape accurately. This has only intensified the criticism surrounding the inclusion of the top surgery option, which many deem unnecessary, especially when so many other important attribute customization features have been excluded. To some, this serves as yet more circumstantial evidence that the industry is intent on making women in gaming as unattractive as possible. The fact that characters are allowed huge scars but not huge boobs or arses, seems absolutely ridiculous to most and screams modern audience and the erasure of traditional feminine women. I mean, seriously, is being able to make my own arse in a video game too much to ask for? The director responsible for these huge oversights in a title that is supposed to be customizable is a person named Corinne Bush, a creator who identifies as a trans woman who, according to her description on Threads, describes herself as a queerosexual gendermancer. What's really strange about this is if you go on her developer story, which can be found on the BioWare website, she describes the Dragon Age games as being all about possibilities, which to me makes it even more odd that it doesn't seem I'll be able to make myself in the game. It reads, "The idea of being who you want to be carries a particularly special meaning for Corinne. As a queer trans woman," she says, "I have a perspective on the games that not everyone has. Dragon Age has long been a place where LGBTQIA+ folks can see people like themselves represented respectfully. It's inherently very queer, and it's such a rare thing for marginalised communities to have representation where we feel proud and powerful in how we are depicted. It's so deeply meaningful for so many. I often get emotional when I think about what it would have meant for a younger version of myself to see someone like her in a game and as a hero no less. I hope we can be a safe place for our queer players to know they are not alone, that they are brilliant and worthy, that they are not only welcome but celebrated." That's all well and good, Corinne, but why can't I as a woman make myself accurately in the game too then? Speaking from experience, she also comments that, "I transitioned during my time at BioWare," she tells us, "and I reflect all the time on how supported and seen I felt through that process and how lucky I am to be surrounded by people of this caliber. It really speaks to the values of this team and their commitment to inclusion in their works and their lives." The fact that a trans woman directed the game, the prominent inclusion of a top surgery option, and the limited customization options for the female form in Dragon Age have understandably left many people perturbed. This is especially true in the current political and media landscape, where it often feels like AAA developers are catering to the so-called modern audience rather than appealing to the broader masses. Bizarrely, in their pursuit of inclusivity, they've somehow managed to exclude and alienate women. I do take issue with the inclusion of top surgery scars in a game that claims to be inclusive if it doesn't even allow me to create a character with my fairly average body proportions. Aside from pretty faces, most traditionally feminine physiques are entirely absent from the game. The developers seem to have a complete denial or aversion to softer, more traditionally female features, so Dragon Age customization in its current state feels nothing more than disingenuous moral grandstanding. It seems that those who make these games do not seem to be genuinely invested in diversity, instead just focused on serving their own agendas, so it's no wonder that millions of people are currently scratching their heads regarding this. Don't forget I can get you huge discounts on Space Marine 2, Black Myth, Wukong, and thousands of other quality games. Use my affiliate links down below, or if you want to show support for the production of these videos in a more personal way, gain access to my cosplay library and more by becoming a backer over on Patreon. I look forward to speaking with you over there soon.